Herb, we're going to talk about Project Fort Zero. You better tell us a bit about what Project Fort Zero is.
Sure. So Project Fort Zero is essentially our effort at Dell to put as secure a system into the marketplace as we can. It's based on work that happened through the Department of Defense in the United States, and we are taking it through what we would call incubation before we get to turning it into a product. And so that's the moniker project. So Project Fort Zero is our zero trust capability to move into the market.
And what I'm hearing from the Department of Defense is they recognize they need to have an advanced implementation of zero trust in the world. What do you think have been some of the limitations of the previous implementations of zero trust?
Well, so it's really previous implementations of security is kind of one, but it's really the ability to make sure that everything's working in concert, that an effort that you bring forward doesn't leave other efforts behind or unconnected. And with zero trust, what people have been trying to do is to upgrade their current environments. But that comes with operational risk and it also comes with dollar risk, schedule risk. And so, what's changing now is with very specific architectures, they can in fact build to something that's not part of their existing environment that gets them to the goal, hopefully faster, less risk, and so on.
Part of the challenge that a lot of CISOs talk to me about, Herb, is that they find they end up with a lot of point solutions to deal with the problems, which means that they have challenges of integrating all of those and getting a coherent view of what's going on inside their organization. What are you doing to address that sort of problem?
Yeah, so it's interesting, as we did talk to a number of our customers, potential customers, they did cite that burden of having to integrate everything, the burden of having to keep up with technology changes, because it's a lot of kit, it's a lot of vendors in their space. And so Dell has decided that we were going to take on that burden specific to zero trust, that we would look across our landscape of partners, and we have hundreds literally, and we would see that we have the partners that are required to be able to get that done. So we're taking on that integration burden for customers, and then we're also taking on that burden of updating the system so it meets the standard at all times.
One of the things that you said to me that I thought was very provocative was actually the challenges of doing a full data protection security model. If data is your biggest thing that you want to protect, then the traditional hyperscale environment is not the answer for your needs. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think the hyperscalers have challenges. They have the largest brownfield environment on the globe, and so there's operational risks upgrading there. They also have challenges providing all the information that you might want in order to be able to fulfill some of the zero trust requirements. It's a very entrenched environment, and it's one where they're going to have challenges bringing forward all the information that's needed. I think you get some advantages if you can kind of step to the side and say, we're going to build this from scratch, ground up, without the history, and then supply that. And so I think that's some of the challenges people are seeing.
And when you say building from the ground up, the thing that I get frightened of is this a big bang evolution in organization, or can I iteratively expand it and get to that advanced zero trust state?
Yeah, so the way that we are approaching this is that we're going to build a composed system. It will start small, probably 2 racks, not more. And that's something that you can put in a data center and then expand capacity as needed. And so you're going to get all of zero trust that we can provide as assessed by the US DoD, but it's going to come in something that's at a small scale. And so you can begin by moving select workloads into that environment, starting to organize your users, organize your devices, and then go at your pace. You can move workloads in at your pace. You can scale that at your pace. You could even put that in a colo. And so it's not a big bang saying you have to rip out your entire infrastructure. It's an approach that allows you to keep your current infrastructure, not disrupt your operations, move select things into a zero trust environment, and expand it as it makes sense. Expand it along with your normal data center refresh.
But you've got to take stakeholders on a journey to do that sort of stuff, and they've got to have an appetite for it. And you were quite adamant, I would say, that if data isn't your number one priority, then there's lots of other people who want to talk to you. I mean, I would have thought data would be everybody's number one priority.
Well, I think that data and protecting data is somewhere, but I think we get caught in this idea of everything has to be convenient and everything has to be frictionless. Otherwise, our customers will run away. Well, the fact of the matter is, the thing hackers love the most is when you make something convenient. Because if you made it convenient for your users, you've made it convenient for the hacker. So there has to be appropriate friction. There has to be some friction in there. And once you start to understand that, you understand that if you're not protecting your data, then you are actually not putting in the right checkpoints, and you're not actually honoring what it takes to generate your revenue with this environment. So while it's important to people, it has to rise above making things convenient, and it has to rise above some other factors that you can come up with. I think one of the things that's interesting that we're finding, and we're trying to understand the measures of effectiveness for these types of systems, is wouldn't it be odd if by making your system more secure, you actually improved the user experience and reduced your cost? I think the assumption is that if you make something more secure, it's going to be more costly and users are going to hate it. I'll give you an example. One of the measures of effectiveness that we think about is how long does it take from me sitting down at my computer and getting to the application inside the environment that I actually want to use. Today, in some environments, there are so many different security procedures that it takes minutes to get to that application. What if by having a very secure system that did some biometrics, did some two-factor authentication, but it was streamlined in, say, a zero trust environment, you actually got to that application in less than 15 seconds. So we've improved the security, we've integrated it, but we've actually improved the user experience at the same time. So I'm just not sure that those assumptions are true. And I want to be clear, it's something we think about and we're going to look at, but I think we could actually achieve some of that.
And I suppose the final question I've got, and it's the question for everybody in 2023, where does generative AI play into this model that you're evolving?
So, generative AI is a specific form. I would say that AI is one of the major changes, integrations into zero trust. This idea that we can take all of the behavior from the system, build models out of it, and then train that model so it can act like your very best defender would act, human defender would act. So that's AI inside of zero trust. I think where the two really interplay is that building these generative models starts to involve a lot of an organization's intellectual property and their knowledge about their customers. It becomes a very high value piece of information. And so I think where it really comes into play is we need to protect it as a very critical data source. And I think it's a very good use case for moving something into a zero trust environment. The other thing that I will say is that because the zero trust environment is extensible, it's very straightforward for us to produce a AI-based rack that would be one of the expansion units. And so those are some of the aspects that at least our team is thinking about AI from.
And as you're saying that, Herb, I can't help feeling the fact that it's not a static, it's constantly evolving, actually gives you greater security because it's not a fixed target that people can aim at. It's something that's got more and more functionality.
It does. And I think what's important is that it's purpose built to enforce policy at the right places and make decisions about policy at the right places. But it becomes the gatekeeper. It becomes the engine for those policy decisions. And once that's true, then as a business and an organization, I customize the system not by changing the components of the system, but by changing the policy directives that I give the system to enforce for me. And so I think organizations will find, and again, this is a future statement, but organizations will find that they can adapt their business, they can change their business and adapt their systems to fit that business without having to go in and change the system itself. And that's really where you start to get the promise of things have changed, we're going to change. But we're going to change in a way that's cost effective and across our enterprise rather than maybe piecemeal over time.